Welcome to Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is a show all about music production, and the music business. My guest today is legendary producer-engineer Ken Caillat. First of all, there's news. EDM, electronic dance music, seems to be slowing in popularity. It seems like the genre peaked in 2013. And now we're finding that clubs in South Beach and Las Vegas are closing, and a lot of festivals that used to draw big crowds are drawing a lot less or not happening at all. Why is this occurring? Well, there's a number of reasons. The biggest one is the prices have gone too high. And this is the prices for the consumer. For instance, just to get into a club, all of a sudden the entrance fees are beyond what the average consumer can pay, let alone the bottle fees and any kind of VIP treatment. Why? A lot of it has to do with the DJs making a lot of money. $400,000 a night plus. And what this has done, it's basically driven the prices up beyond what the average user, the average club goer, can sustain. There's also another reason, and that's the exchange rates in American versus South American currency has changed a lot. So as a result, many South American high rollers just can't afford to go to Las Vegas and spend a lot of money on very expensive bottle service and VIP service. So they're forced to stay home. So all of a sudden, this source of high roller income has gone. But there's also more to it than that. A lot of longtime concert goers and EDM lovers have basically complained that what's happening now is they see the same show over and over. And let's face it, how much can a DJ actually do that's different, that hasn't been done before and they haven't seen over and over and over again? So they're getting tired of that, as well as they're getting tired of house music. And let's face it, EDM is based on house music. So all of a sudden, you have all of these people who grew up on this genre that are just getting tired of it. What's more, SFX, the company that basically rolled up all the festivals and rolled up all of the online portals for EDM, just went bankrupt. So if EDM seems to be slowing down as a genre, if it's peaked, and it's seen its better days, let me ask you, what's the next trend? Does anybody see a trend happening out there? Usually it starts in the underground, and let's face it, I'm in Los Angeles, and the people in LA and New York and Nashville are usually the last ones to know about something that's happening out on the street. Tell me, if you know of something that's happening, let us know. If you have any questions or comments, send them to questions@BobbyOInnerCircle.com. I just launched a couple of brand new coaching programs. One is called Lead and Background Vocal Mixing Tricks, and the other is the Ultimate Punchy Drum Trick Course. Go to BobbyOwsinskiCourses.com to learn more. More news this week, Soundcloud, the beleaguered streaming platform that's pretty much a standard for musicians to distribute their work, has now launched a paid tier for $9.99 a month. And actually, if you're on an iOS platform like an iPhone, you have to pay $12.99 a month. You get an extended catalog, you get offline listening, and your listening is ad-free. Now, that's not very much that you're getting. And my take on this is that the major record labels who only just recently signed off on their license to SoundCloud, they kind of demanded it as part of their license agreement. They demanded that this $9.99 a month paid tier be instituted. How serious is SoundCloud about this? We don't know. But there's something else that's curious about this paid tier. Artists really don't know how much they're going to make from it. They assume it's going to be based on market share, but nobody really knows. And SoundCloud hasn't told anyone. There's nothing on their website. There hasn't been an email that went out to all the users. No one knows. There's been no PR, no public announcement, nothing. As a result, a lot of users are up in arms saying, well, wait a second. You're using our music, you're getting paid for it, but we're not getting paid, or you're not telling us how much you're going to pay us? That's not too fair. There's a lot of other things that are happening. Because SoundCloud didn't have the licenses from the major labels, there was a lot of DJs or a lot of producers that did remixes that were having their accounts canceled. The reason why was they were using unlicensed material in their remixes. This works in a club fine because the club is paying for the license, but it just doesn't work on a streaming platform. So as a result, if you happen to be one of the unlucky ones that were caught, all of a sudden your account was closed down. What ended up happening was a lot of remixers wound up moving from SoundCloud over to either Mixcloud or Dubster. They're probably not going to move back, even though now they can put a remix up and not have to worry because the licenses are taken care of. There's a blanket license for what they're doing. After you've reestablished yourself on another platform, there's no reason to actually go back to SoundCloud. So no one knows how this is really going to end up for SoundCloud, whether this is going to be something that's an attribute that really helps them in business or not. Now, one of the things that's interesting is the fact that SoundCloud has 175 million active users. If they only convert 5% of them to the paid tier, that's about 9 million users, and that's really good. That puts them right in the mainstream of paid streaming platforms. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out in the long run. Keep an eye on this in the future because, once again, we don't know what's going to happen, how much they're going to pay to the artists, how much they're going to pay to publishers. We just don't know. There's a lot of questions. And also, we don't know if the paid tier really has enough benefits to get people excited to actually want to pay for it. My guest today is Ken Caillat, who co-produced and engineered Fleetwood Mac's biggest-selling albums, including Rumors, Tusk, and Mirage. He's also worked with many other superstars, including the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, Pat Benatar, Herbie Hancock, and many more. Ken is also the father and producer of singer-songwriter Colby Caillat. I spoke to Ken from his studio in Los Angeles. How did you meet Fleetwood Mac? Was this just another gig for you, or what happened there?
Yeah, it was another gig. I was the luckiest guy in the world. I didn't even get it that what an opportunity was laid out in front of me. I was the chief engineer at Wally Heider's and did most of the rock stuff, and so Fleetwood Mac called up and they had just done a live remote for the King Biscuit Flower Hour. And so then they came to me, they came back to Wally Heider's to mix the radio show. And so my studio manager asked me if I would do it, and I said, nah, I don't want to do it. So I hadn't heard of them. I didn't know who the hell they were. And my good friend said, are you out of your mind? They got a new album out, a new song, and you got to do it. So I said, oh, fine, I'll do it. So I came in on like a Saturday morning to mix the radio show and hit it off with everybody really good. And it was just a cheesy little radio show. So I just mixed the radio show, and one of the songs was Rhiannon. And Stevie was like twirling around when I was mixing it, like, oh my God, this is heaven. This is heaven. and so then I was done. They left. We mixed the radio show. They coincidentally had the next day they had already set up a recording session to mix the actual album version of Rhiannon, to make a single version out of it, a single mix. So they were going to do it at Record Plant with this guy, and they said, gee, Ken, we had such a good time with you. We already have this guy at Record Plant. We're going to mix the album, the single there, and that's going to be the next release. We're going to drop on it to radio. And and I said, okay, well, easy come, easy go. And then they went over and mixed at Record Plant. Apparently the guy was just experimenting, and his forte was automated mixing. I guess he had the first automated faders. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't do it. And apparently it went so well with me that whatever he was doing made Lindsay nervous. And so Lindsay kind of hovered over this engineer the entire mix and just made him even more nervous. So I got a call the Monday morning after that, and it's like, hey, Ken, the mix didn't go so well. We didn't get it with this guy, and we want you to try to do it yourself. The radio mix. So came back in, and it was like, okay, I already did this once. So I did it, and again, Stevie's dancing and everything, and they said, okay, we love the mix, and they used the mix, and they said, we're going to do this album in a couple months up in Sausalito. Do you want to come with us? I said, sure. And that's how I met him.
Yeah, but what's cool, and this comes up with all the people I talk to, that you have to take anything that comes your way, any opportunity, because you never know what's going to blow up, which is kind of what happened here, right?
Right. Yeah. And so out of that little mix, I wasn't nervous at all, and it was just peaceful, relaxed. And then I got the album gig, and I drove up to Sausalito I was going to be staying with the guys. They had a record plant, had a house there, and I brought my dog, and we just started, doing the record. And apparently, all the people at the record plant just said, "Hey, fucking Caillat and Dash, what lucky guys for doing this record." And it's like, what's this? And I was more interested in the women in Sausalito and the receptionist at the record plant. I mean, I was still really interested in doing the music. The beauty of what they wanted me to do, I was a really good engineer, and I loved to get good sounds, and they just said, whatever you want to do, take as much time as you want getting the sound. So I just had a lot of fun making sounds, but I was hired only as an engineer.
Well, how did the production credit come about? You were just so into it that they gave.
Yeah, I was so into it. At one point, they said, you guys are fired. And we were working like 14-hour days and 7 days a week, and we thought that was pretty funny, and then we laughed, and they said, "Okay, we're just kidding. Well, no, we're gonna upgrade you to producers." The thing I like to tell the story was one of the first days I was sitting there, and I had the band was out in the studio, and they had gobos around them, and they had their cigarettes and their ashtrays and their drinks and their headphones on, and one day Christine said, "Hey, which take did you like better?" I tried a couple different things. What did you like better? And I went, "Huh?" I was working on the drums, and I said, "Come on in, I'll play them back for you." She goes, "I don't want to fucking come back and come in there, and I'm all set here." She goes, "You're sitting there. Start paying attention to tempos and who's playing where and whether I'm stepping on anybody, because we're focused on our own thing." It's like, really? Okay. So I started going, we started paying attention to the takes and who everybody was doing. And I told Chris, from an engineering point of view, I said I was having trouble really getting this, separating the guitar and the keyboards. I said I was trying to EQ it, and she goes, "Lindsay, play up an octave. I'm going to go down an octave, or down a half step." Mm-hmm. And so it was like, that was an interesting fix. I was trying to fix it, with EQ, and they just changed instrumentation.
Yeah.
Where they were playing.
Yeah.
So, and basically that was the beginning of my paid internship to become a producer for Fleetwood Mac. And 6 months later, they said, "You guys have been doing such amazing work. We're going to make you producers." And so, yeah, we said, "Oh, great." And we didn't even do a deal until the album was done.
Wow.
Like 2 months after. And we sat down and they cut up paperwork, and we had points and all that other stuff. And I mean, it's like so opposite of anything you do now, right?
Yeah.
Negotiations. And
what was your relationship with Richard Dashut in terms of how you work together? Because that's not always easy to do a co-production like that.
We became best friends, really. Right off the bat, the very first day, I asked him, or he asked me, if we wanted to get high when we started the mix, and it was a beautiful Saturday morning, and we just hit it off, and and so he and I would kind of challenge each other. He'd say, "You call that a snare sound?" I said, "Yeah." And he'd go, "Let me at it. Move over. Let the pro do it." And he'd weasel around and make the sound. I go, "You call that any good?" And I would do something different. And it was just fun. So then when we started producing, we said, "Okay, tell you what, I'm going to engineer. I'll focus on that. you focus on keeping the band happy, because at that point the band was starting the breakup process. So there was crying and there was arguing and and Richard, who has a great personality, would just tell jokes and kind of, take the heat off of me, and I could focus on getting the guitar sound or whatever. We had a great time.
Was there ever a point during that when you thought, oh, this band is going to break up, we're not going to finish this?
I didn't. I never thought that. I thought, what the hell? The fighting lasted for a while, and right about that time, the single that, the first single, I guess, Over My Head started coming out, and we got a call from their management that the single was taken off and looks like they might have a hit album on their hands, and the attorney cautioned them that, if you can really make this a great record, you could be superstars. And Stevie, who used to do all the work, she, was a cleaning lady and had these odd jobs that she would keep the food on the table between her and Lindsay. She said, I didn't want to be a cleaning lady anymore. So finally, she said, at one point, she said, look, guys, I know we're all breaking up, we're crying, we're everything, but can we just get this album done? If we can do this. The attorney says we're going to be superstars. So they all agreed to do it, to stick together. And then there were fights, but they all knew that they were going to kind of focus on making a hit record, which I thought was pretty amazing. That these people, pretty much basically hippies and English drunks, they said we're going to persevere, and make this thing happen, and which is really kind of the essence of why I wrote the book, because it wasn't easy. I mean, there was fighting and there was stuff, and they didn't come into the studio every day with a template. They didn't have demos that they had worked out. They came in every day like, okay, how are we going to fix this? And the tape would break and something else would happen, and we had to figure out how to do it. So, which is why I wrote the book, because there were so many interesting things and some technical things that theoretically couldn't be done. And we just did them. Didn't know we couldn't do them, so we did them.
Oh, you're talking about the tape, the high end going away, right?
Right. But there was also a thing that where we wanted to create a drum loop, and so in our wisdom, we decided that the only way we could do a drum loop is to literally cut a piece of tape, 4 bars or 8 bars or whatever it was of drum rhythm, and create a loop out of that, which of course is easy today, but we literally recorded this piece of drum, this drum section, and I think when we cut it out, it ended up to be 32 feet long, whatever IPS it was.
Yeah.
So we had a nice loop, 32 feet long, and so it's like, okay, now what? So we grabbed all the roadies and grabbed some empty reels and put it on the tape machine. And after we figured out the tape machine tension it was a 3M79. So it was, you had to fool the machine into telling it the tension was right, and then it was run.
Yeah. And
so we recorded the machine, the loop end of another machine for 4 minutes, and all the roadies held the tape. And a beer probably in one hand and tape and a tape reel in the other hand, and we did it. So,
is this for Dreams?
Yes.
Yeah. What's funny with that? Remember, Atari had a line of consoles for a while. I remember going to a demo at some studio in the Valley, and they had a copy of Dreams that they were using as a demo. This is in the early 80s, mid 80s somewhere. And I remember soloing up the hi-hat on Dreams and thinking to myself, you can tell the song is a hit just from the hi-hat. and I'm thinking to myself, how the hell did they get that separation on that? This is amazing. But it took me till I read your book going, okay, now I get it. It was a loop. Wow. Even back then, that was very cool.
Yeah. And we put a flanger on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
Just a slight flanger, so it was kind of going, because we wanted it to be hypnotic. We just thought it was so almost boring that it's going to be hypnotic.
I don't want to spend too much time on Fleetwood Mac because there's so much else to talk about with you. But one last thing. So you went from being with the band when they were blowing up to when they had already blown up. What did you learn through the whole process when it came to the end, when you kind of took your breath? What did you learn from all that?
Well, success is spoils, really, you know. I mean, at the beginning, Lindsey Buckingham would sit at an airport lounge, you know, and sit on the cross-legged on the floor like we've seen a musician do, playing his guitar,
mm-hmm.
you know. And after Rumors, that guy was gone. He'd never be sitting on the floor because he'd stain his pants, or, you know, he's too big of a star or whatever. And so the egos really everybody was telling everybody how great they were, and money was pouring in. And the Tusk album was a nightmare because everybody just had pretty much of a huge ego, and if they weren't alcoholics, they certainly were by that time, and if they weren't druggies, they were definitely indulging in excesses. So I just think everybody really changed, and they would come in. I remember, we'd have Lobster. Lobster came in. It's cold. Send it back. Oh. We don't want it. You know, or don't throw it away. Don't worry about sending it back. Just you know.
Wow.
And I was the same way. I mean, I'm when I say them, I always mean me too, because I was kind of getting that way. I had a Ferrari now, and you know, I mean, things were good, and I could see that success changes people, which is really a lot about what Tusk is about.
Yeah.
Because Lindsey came in at the first day of Tusk, and had second day of Tusk, he'd come in and he had gone crazy the night before. That morning, I guess he'd cut all his hair off with the scissors in the shower, and cut up his pants and ragged, and his normally long hair was gone, and he just said, we can't be like this. We can't be sellouts like the Eagles and do everything the same. I can't do another Rumors. We have to find myself. I have to be true to myself. I don't know who myself is. I got to find myself. Somewhat of a dramatic. Anyway, so the second album and the third album was pretty much, you know, a lot of arrogance, a lot of decadence, but we had pretty good time. But 12 months for every album was about 12 months.
That's a long time
of intense crap. So I finally said, I got to move on.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you came to that realization then that you were kind of falling in the trap. What was there something that kind of slapped you in the face and you went, oh, wait a second, this isn't who I am?
Well, I got married and I had a baby, and my dog died. The dog on the cover of Tusk died on the PCH, and I wasn't around. And finally, I just said I didn't want to do 12 hours a day anymore.
Yeah. Let's come up to the future here. So, or the present, I should say. So now your base of operation is over at Village, right? You're working out of there.
It was. We moved out of there last month.
Oh, okay. I'm a little behind the times on my news.
Yeah. So they had a remodeling thing, and so I've been there 7 years, and they said they needed my space for other stuff. So we're in the process of looking for a new studio now.
Yeah. Which isn't real easy right now, because all of a sudden the business seems to be back. Studios are busier than they've been in a long time, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's still studios. I started a record company. I've got partners now, and once again, my life is cursed with partners. And back in the past, at some point, I decided to stop doing music, and I wanted to get a business going. So I figured a business could work when I don't always have to be there for the business, and so I was always commuting to West LA. It seemed like, and I'm still commuting 32 years later, commuting to West LA.
There are worse places to go to, I think.
Yeah, but I found I live out in Westlake, and so I found some studios out here, but we just did a deal with a film company, and we have now offices at the film company, which is in Beverly Hills. And so my partners, they live out here too. As much as they would like to do the short commute, they feel like our studios need to be near the film company. So once again, I'm doing, the commute for my partners.
Well,
because it was me, I'd be working out here.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the record label then, and film company and everything. How did that all come about?
Well, after really, I think, after my daughter had her success and she got the big record deal, and suddenly she was whisked away and to the world, and she's on tour all the time, and she became really big. I basically got a lot of parents calling me and saying, "Hey, my daughter, my son, Tom Johnson of the Doobie Brothers, called me and said, 'Hey, can you help me do what you did for my daughter?'"
Yeah.
So I started, and I got a lot. I get this, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 people a week that come in and I guess I have to thank American Idol, because they've made so many young people aware that there is a career out there to be had if you do everything right. So people started. I had a lot of artists coming to me and wanted to do something, and saying the labels they're being turned down by the labels, and of course the labels were getting more nervous all the time. Didn't want to take as many chances and really not developing an artist. So I said, I'm going to start a label and take advantage of these people that are coming to me, which is what my label was, really to take new artists and help them get out there. And then my partners, I produced this guy named Michael Hodges. He was a kind of a country singer, and I produced him, and I really got along with him and his manager. And I called the manager one day. I said, "Do you think I should start a label? I'm thinking about it." She goes, "I think it's a great idea. Definitely do it." And so they came back out from Nashville, and we opened this label. So we started talking about, how stupid are you for opening a label? It's hard to get music on the radio now. And we said, well, let's see, it wouldn't be so tough if we could get our music in films, and then the films would basically play the music, and then the radio would have no choice but to play it also.
Yeah.
Kind of coincidentally, I met one of the heads of Alcon Entertainment, which makes a lot of pictures, and they just did the Point Break movie recently, and Golf and Tale 2. Now we've been replacing their music supervisors on films with us and our music, and so we're actually able to put our artist music into closing credits, opening credits, key scenes. We call them memorable moments.
Mm-hmm. We
try to make memorable moments in the film more memorable with great music.
That's cool. Good idea.
Yes. So as we've been working, I mean, some of these movies, you get young people who don't want to really hear a song that they have in their playlist on their iPod or iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
They want to hear, if it's a cutting edge movie, they want to hear cutting edge music. So we've kind of expanded. We have a lot of writers that kind of networked with, and if we need hip hop, if we need this, that, we have all this music, and so that's what our label does. We look for artists, give them a deal, and then try to get them in there. Well, we have, like, we're doing this scene with Owen Williams, a movie now with Owen Williams, and we get the cues, and so we know kind of what the director's thinking about for some of the songs, and we'll say, well, what about this song?
Mm-hmm.
And 75% of the time it's like, that's great, that's much better, that works. And we're developing artists. We use known artists, and we can pretty much go to anybody now.
Yeah.
Once you get $100 million film, you can go to Beyonce.
Yeah.
You want to write for the director. So having this film thing is, and Alcon invite us to have offices in their offices. So we're very close. So, I mean, it's given us a whole level of availability that I never even thought we'd be able to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Let's talk about Colby for a second. So how instrumental were you in her success in terms of her getting signed and starting out and everything? And I know you encouraged her when she was young, but were you there for her breakthrough?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was definitely there for the breakthrough. But but it really, I mean, other than being a good dad and getting good vocal lessons for her and paying for sessions in the studio and bringing her into the studio and letting her see what the world was like. I mean, I didn't make calls, to Jimmy Iovine or anybody. Hey, you got to see this girl. I was kind of as surprised as anybody that she broke out. But when she signed the deal, the record company, apparently I didn't realize this. They always want a story. The label of the radio station want a story. So me being the rumors guy was a cool story for them to add on the Colby story.
I see. Okay, makes sense.
But she really has this fantastic voice, and all these songs she wrote just really by herself. And she wrote "Bubbly." We had just moved to a house on a golf course, and she goes, "Dad, I'm not writing much anymore." I said, "Well, I can tell you why. You're always out with your girlfriends, playing around." I said, "We just moved into this house. Why don't you stay home this weekend? Why don't you get bored? Go in your room, clean your room, get it set up, and just write a song." I didn't tell her she had to stay in her room, but I mean, I just kind of suggested to go up there and write a song. And she came down and she wrote "Bubbly,"
wow,
which was interesting.
Yeah.
Wondering what love was like. But the thing that she gives me credit for, which I thought I was just being a dad, was I was driving home from the studio one day, and my daughter and Colby had been singing all the time. And she's just 7 a.m, just this little 11-year-old singer, And by the time we were 16, 17, I started thinking, okay, she's taking vocal lessons. What are we going to do? What's the most logical thing? And I realized, okay, well, if she's a singer, she didn't play an instrument. If we were going to assume that she was going to become a singer, a professional singer, we'd have to start buying songs. Or I said, Colby, you need to learn to play an instrument. I said, because otherwise we're going to have to buy songs, and you're not going to be anybody. We're not going to be able to buy good songs. And I said, so it's clear, that you need to learn to play an instrument, and then you can take control of your life. And she went out and started taking guitar lessons a few weeks later. And the first day of her guitar lessons, she came home. She wrote this great song. So she had it in her. I used to offer $100 a song for every song she'd write.
Good incentive. Wow. That's awesome.
I mean, that's the only thing I'm going to take credit for,
Okay. So what was it like working with your daughter in the studio as a producer? Because that must have, I would think that it could go either way. It would be really uncomfortable, or it could be, really cool.
It was really cool. Of course, I mean, at that time, I had the first record I did with a guy named Michael Blue, and I was the executive producer. I would come in because I was paying all the bills, so making sure that the record was going the way I wanted it to. And then he and I were going to do the second record together, and he couldn't get what he wanted, so he kind of stormed off in a pissy fit. So I hadn't been in the studio for quite a while, and so we were looking at studios, and I finally said, "Wait a second." We were over at Capitol Records, and Al Schmidt was there, and "Hey, Al, how you doing?" And I said, "Wait a second, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I want to produce this." And for a month before we started, I thought, what have I done?
Yeah, right.
Have I just ruined my daughter's career? Do I still have it? I mean, am I this old guy who's just too old to be able to make the record work for her? And so I had a lot of sleepless nights, but I hired the best musicians, and we went and I had a meeting with all the musicians. I told them what I wanted out of the record, and I wanted them to be listening to her needs, and we went in the studio, and it was actually pretty easy. It's called the songs are there at that time. We were just able to. We didn't have to do a Max Martin on them or anything. We just had to make them as full sounding as possible, which was great. Yeah. So I mean, the biggest thing for me was worried that I'm going to embarrass her, and get in the situation and not know what to do. And that never happened. I'm always surprised at people like us, and you probably really get this all the time. I never know. I walk into a situation and I think, well, I'm just going to have to deal with this. But sometimes the technical things are so much a part of us that the fix is a couple of microseconds away in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, here, just do this and this. And then it's like, hey, how'd you know that? I don't know how I knew that, you know?
Right. Well, Colby was cool with you then as a producer then.
Yeah. She got mad at me one day. She was talking to all her girlfriends and we were trying to get some stuff going. I said, Colby Marie Caillat, get in that studio or you're in trouble or something like that. And I said it kiddingly, and she said she was really embarrassed. But we did great. And the only thing that was kind of weird is we stopped. There was a point where, you know, all I wanted to do, I'd call her up and say, so what'd you think? Do you like this bass better than this bass? Huh? I said, you didn't listen to the bass? I mean, come on, you got to listen. Tell me whether you like the bass better. And then pretty soon it was like, well, Dad, I kind of miss having you as my father, you know?
Yeah.
And because it was just about, you know, I mean, with every artist I work with, I'm trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. So,
yeah.
She didn't want to be on the same page all the time. So, but yeah, so we had a great time. And, you know, I think what I did half the third album and then half the fourth album. And, you know, and we continue to work all the time on other stuff, and we talk about our music. So,
yeah.
So it was fun.
But it's cool to have a hit again, huh? To come back around like that.
Absolutely. As I said in my book, I'm a pretty lucky guy, you know. I mean, to have that ride twice and have the, you know, I mean, it's and my daughter, you know. I mean, I get so proud of her. I hear her. It's like, you know, I mean, I'll go see her show, and it's like hard for me not to get a tear in my eye in front of people, you know.
Yeah. No kidding. You should be proud. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I am proud, but I mean, I'm kind of like, I cry at tire commercials anyhow, you know. But.
Cool. Hey, just something off the subject for a second that I'm curious about. I was looking at your website and it said that you were the owner of a couple of patents. What's that about?
Oh, yeah. Well, back in the mid 80s, in 1987, we had an earthquake, and I happened to be sitting on the toilet. It was 7:00 in the morning, and I felt the earthquake hit, splashed water in my ass, and I ran into the bedroom where my wife and the baby were sleeping. I said, "Hey, we're having an earthquake," and she sits her head up. She says, "There's no earthquake," and there was nothing. It was just this one thing, and there was nothing. So basically, what I had discovered, my acid discovered, is a thing called a P wave, which is the initial pulse that an earthquake releases when that happens. P wave rushes twice as fast as the sine wave, which does all the destruction.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I discovered the P wave, and I said, well, so I called Caltech, and I said, this is weird. I was just in Malibu, and there was an earthquake in I don't know, off the coast or something. I said, and so I felt this boom hit. He goes, yeah, that's a P wave. And so I found out that in Moose. I said, well, why doesn't somebody make an alarm? You know, you could make an earthquake alarm, and it just, if it's going to give you some warning. And he's like, yawn. He said it really wouldn't give you that much warning. I said, well, I don't care how much warning. I like any warning I'll take, you know?
Yeah.
So I took apart my pinball machine, took the tilt mechanism out of there, and built a little prototype. So anyway, we developed this earthquake alarm. It was called Quake Awake, and it was set, and we sold 50,000 of them. And we built it. We made the clamshells, and we made the circuitry, and eventually moved down to Mexico and had them assembled there. But it turned out to be something that nobody wanted. We sold in Home Depot for quite a while. But when people said, well, gee, if it's right under me, I'm going to get 1 second or 0 seconds. And, Mexico City would have had 30 seconds. But a lot of people said, I hate earthquakes so much that I don't even want to know. Just don't even tell me.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Even so, hey, it's cool to have a patent, to be granted a patent.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, but I went out and got a patent, and we have some advanced patents on it. We keep thinking about doing something. You could turn the patent into a tornado detector or a gas line detector, stuff like that. But, it just takes money and hardware and time. And so I decided to stick with music. But so I had a patent.
All right. Last question. What is the best piece of business advice that you either received from somebody along the way or you learned for yourself?
There's a couple things. It's being a good producer. I remember Richard Dashett said it's a lot about knowing who to produce. And the other thing I tell musicians is being a musician is a rough place to be to grow old. The music business is a rough business to grow old in. So if you're going to do it, you better, think about getting a 401k and be diligent about your savings. There's a lot of people who had a lot of fun. A lot of studio managers. I know girls and women that were the managers and don't have a 401k, don't have a retirement plan.
Yeah.
Roadies, I see all the time that are sitting there struggling for money. So to me, if you're going to be in the music business, you better be having just what I said, develop a 401k and save for the future.
Yeah. Well, hey, we both have friends that, are older and aren't working and kind of aged out, and it gets pretty tough at that point.
It is, yeah. And it's no fun to just talk about the good old days. And I got too many friends who just say, "I remember the days of Fleetwood." Yeah, I do. Thanks. So
yeah. Well,
I can't live there forever. So
yeah,
I'm lucky. I'm still making music because so many people keep coming to me, I guess. And, so I met with a 20-year-old girl yesterday from Germany that I think could be the next big thing. Got a fantastic voice. And I go open up the cupboards of all of our songwriters and set up some writing sessions. And, you never know.
Yeah.
But put her in the right film and get her in the right placement.
Hey, it's cool.
I still in the studio.
It's cool to still be in the game. Because there's a lot of people that aren't, that for whatever reason they're not, and you're still in it and you're vital and moving forward, which is even better because a lot of people, as you just said, they kind of stay in the past and you're going forward. It's great, Ken.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the past. And I'm doing this new thing now. It's called Artist Max. I don't know if you know anything about it.
I don't. Tell me.
Well, go to my website, artistmax.org. There's a sizzle reel. Basically, what I learned from Colby is when she wrote that song up in the bedroom and put it up on the MySpace and it went viral. Every label was coming out. Every attorney was chasing her, trying to get her to play at the club to sign something. And so the label said, we had made these demos, me and Michael Blue at the studio, of these songs of hers. And they literally she was the queen of digital. I think she was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. And the labels wanted to capitalize on her 20 million followers.
Yeah.
They assumed, they knew that they put this record out, they'd sell 20 million copies or 2 million at least, some percentage, of that. And so they signed a record deal, whisked her away on the tour. And I had to go and put together a band for her to help find the musicians, find a musical director, get her a guitar tuner. I was her roadie for a while. And so when she went on the road, she was just really had learned how to do this stuff. And she was a little awkward. So eventually we had to hire this girl who was a kind of a movement coach who would teach and kind of help her get comfortable on stage because Colby had really bad stage fright. Mm-hmm. And so this woman went out and went on the road with Colby on and off for about a year. And throughout that time made Colby come in and watch the videos of her on stage and performing and made corrections. And she would talk in Colby's ears when Colby was between songs, and somebody would say, "Colby, we love you." And she'd go, "Thank you." And the coach would say, "No, thank you, LA. And how are you guys doing?" And so Colby learned how to do the patter, if he, and so she learned all this stuff. But I said, that should be available to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and because I get a lot of artists, as I said, these young artists who still come to me and say, well, we met this guy. He's out in the valley and he thinks my daughter's really good. So we did this video and, you know, and it shows me the video and the girl's got braces and the video looks great, you know, but she's all lip syncing and everything else. And I said, where does she play? And she doesn't play anywhere. She's afraid.
Yeah.
You just did a $15,000 video, you know? So I started saying, well, there's a lot of people that are being ripped off because the parents want to do something. So I said, why don't we just create an artist development center where you can come and you can pay your money and I will get all those people, all the best people. So I have this Beyonce's image coach and she's Aisha Francis, who's just amazing. I have vocal coaches. I have celebrities. I had John Resnick at the Goo Goo Dolls at our first event in September. I had Christina Perry at the second event 2 weekends ago, telling people about songwriting. Colby called in and did a Skype session about writing. And so it's basically songwriting, image. We have cameras, hair, makeup. How do you look and how do you dress to be a rock star? How do you know which camera to look at? How do you own a stage? How do you walk across the stage? All that stuff. You know, trying to give somebody all the tools, because I'm convinced you need to have everything. If you're not going to be totally confident on stage, if you knew you had a piece of broccoli between your teeth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and if you know you feel fat, if you feel like I'm not dressed right, I can't quite hear, the stupid monitor mixer has a poor mix for me, you know, so I keep saying the right tool, make sure every person carries a guitar tuner, but you never that's the easiest thing to fix, right?
Yeah.
And I just did a thing. I was up at a songwriting conference and the poor girl came out and she forgot her guitar tuner. And it was out of tune, and she didn't know how to tune it, and she sang out everything out of tune. It was like,
yeah. Oh.
I mean, that's the easiest mistake to fix, right?
Yeah.
And then there's in-ears. Get in-ears so you can hear. You know, just so many things, and you know, how do you look, and how do you eat right?
That's an awesome idea.
You can get all that stuff done.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ken. You know, what's interesting is, when we were growing up in the business, there was kind of like a farm team because there were so many places to play that, you know, you can play every night in front of people in clubs and get good. So you learned all that stuff by osmosis, and sure, you might be rough around the edges and still need somebody, but at least you get over the stage fright and you get a lot of that happening. And that's not the case anymore. You know, for somebody that's hot, they're playing, you know, twice a month. You know, which isn't nearly enough. So something that you're doing, is just awesome.
I think so, you know, and so now I actually have another pet peeve that it's not a pet peeve. So I've got the school thing, the Artist Max is what it's called, their weekend workshops. And I started thinking, well, I love the weekend workshops, but after it's over and the kids are hugging each other and the parents, and it makes they make these Facebook pages of the secret girls of Artist Max, and they, you know, and they learn to songwrite, and there's Skype sessions, and so I keep thinking, well, why don't we do this more often? Well, instead of every 3 months, why don't I have a songwriting session every month, once a month? You come in and you work on another song, and while it's there, why don't we do some, you know, vocal lessons so you could stay, because I know that my weekend is not gonna. My weekend event's not going to fix everything. I mean, the lady had to be on the road with Colby almost a year. So, you know, it's just going to identify things.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm thinking about even having one that's more often than that, calling it LA Artist Development Center, thinking about something where we could just be there as this kind of like Berkeley Music School without having to be all the pomp and circumstance. You could just go in there and I need to have my daughter, a label could send their artists in there for stage work and songwriting and, you know, image and makeup and all stuff. But I'm trying to save the record plant is what I was going to say, my other little pet project. The Sausalito record plant is still sitting there where we did Rumors. It's been padlocked on and off for a number of years, and it's had a bunch of funky owners who come in there and basically didn't maintain anything, sold all the good stuff. So it's basically just the acoustic shell of the studio sitting there. And so when Wally Hyder's, where I started working, when it was gone, and when the Texas Opry House in Austin, Texas, got bulldozed, I started saying, well, what, all these places, I mean, they mean so much to me. So I've been trying to put together a set of people to buy the Sausalito record plant. I actually think it's 1.5 acres in downtown Sausalito for $3 million, and there's enough room to build a second building. So
sounds like a bargain. Yeah,
I think so too. But the problem is that the community kind of likes this. If you buy it, you're going to be shackled by some constraints. Well, we really wanted to stay music.
Yeah.
But but that's where my Artist Max thing could come in. It'd be a great place for young students to come, learn to write. And there's plenty of musicians up in Northern California.
No kidding.
That we could. So that's kind of like what I'm working on too.
That's awesome. You have so much in the pipeline. Dynamite.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's fun.
I had no idea. That's great, Ken. Very cool. To find out more about Ken and his various ventures, go to kencaillat.com. That's spelled KenCaillat, all one word, KenCaillat.com. Or you can go to artistmax.org, just as it sounds, artistmax, one word, .org. Thanks for listening and being my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@BobbyOInnerCircle.com. Many thanks to Steve Cherubino. He's the host of the EDM Producer Podcast at edmmr.com, and he helps put the show together. Thank you, Steve. To listen to other episodes of Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle, go to BobbyOwsinski.com and select the podcast tab, or go to BobbyOInnerCircle.com, or you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Mixcloud, and Google Play. At BobbyOwsinski.com and BobbyOInnerCircle.com, you'll also find a sign-up form for my newsletter for alerts for new podcasts. This is Bobby Owsinski. I'll see you next time.